As a rising Smarter Cyber starts at Dakota State University. Home to the Beacom College of Computer and Cyber Sciences, we aren't just preparing for the future, we're reinventing it. Our classrooms, majors, and graduate degrees are charged with advanced technology, both online and on campus. With innovative education, research, partnerships, and outreach programs, discover what the Beacom College at Dakota State is, where cyber gets smarter. Explore degrees at dsu.edu today.
Who is Dakota State University? We are dedicated, disciplined, determined. We are more than students, more than educators, more than alumni. We are Trojans. Dynamic, driven, distinctive. This is who we are, and nothing can stand in our way.
We're here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Dakota State University. My name is Amy Krissinger. I'm the Associate Vice President for Enrollment here at Dakota State University. Very happy to have those of you who are here with us live today, and then those of you who are watching us via live stream. Very happy to have you with us. Dakota State is a school that focuses on science, technology, engineering, and math, otherwise known as STEM. So this Science Theme Day is a very important event for us, and very happy to have people associated with that here. We know you will enjoy the upcoming presentation. But first, our president, Dr. Yosei Marie Griffiths, would like to also welcome you to DSU.
Good morning and welcome to the campus of Dakota State University, and an especially warm welcome to our honored guest today, Miss America 2020, Camille Schrier. I had hoped to be with you in person today, but I have to be in Pierre for a meeting of the South Dakota delegation on the celebration of 100 years of women's right to vote. However, I didn't want to miss this opportunity to welcome all of you to our amazing university and this inspiring event. I want you to know I'm with you in spirit. I'm so glad you're going to have an opportunity to hear from Camille today. She's a remarkable person and a lover of science, as are many of us here at DSU. During the Miss America competition, in one of the interviews, Camille said something that I so appreciated. She said she was participating in the competition to show everyone that a scientist can be Miss America, and Miss America can be a scientist. Yes! You may not know that I started out as a scientist, as a physicist. And so it's also true that a scientist can be the president of a university, and a president of a university can be a scientist. I know many of you today might be sitting in your seats right now thinking, wow, I could never be as amazing as Miss America. Well, she'll be the first to tell you that it's not always been easy. Camille has had to overcome some significant physical and health challenges just to make it through daily life, and much more to rise to the heights of becoming Miss America and being a doctoral student in pharmacy. But she's refused to let any obstacles slow her down. She found her passion in science, and she has pursued it to astonishing accomplishments already. She is going to share with you how and why she finds science so fun and intriguing. And while you're listening to her, I want you to tell yourselves, I could do that. I can work as hard as Miss America has and be just as amazing as she is, and maybe science could be my path too. Not only are you going to hear from Miss America today, you've also seen some remarkable science demonstrations by some of our equally amazing DSU science professors. DSU is a place where we love science, and if you find there's a part of science that interests and excites you, this university will be a great place to pursue your own personal passion. Welcome to DSU. Welcome to this great opportunity to hear from Miss America, Camille Schrier, and welcome to a chance to think about how science might be your own path to amazing experiences and a fulfilling and exciting life. Welcome.
Thank you, President Griffiths. We are happy to welcome several guests today joining us via live stream. Our Holly Cundy's and Kelby Johnson's second grade classes from Huron Public Schools, and Kathy Kerr's second grade class from Madison Elementary School, and also joining us via live stream are students from Madison Middle School. Joining us in person are Amber Hulse, the reigning Miss South Dakota. A native of Hot Springs, she was crowned Miss South Dakota on June 1st, 2019. Amber is a political science major from USD. Her Social Impact Initiative is a nonprofit organization that aims to help kids with career planning. It's called Operation Overload, a confidential career briefing. Kelley Baumann Wachter, Miss South Dakota from 2006. Thank you. She was honored as a Miss Congeniality finalist at the Miss America competition in 2007. She and her husband, Jonathan, work at Baumann Agency, where they work on crop insurance and precision planting equipment. Her favorite things? Her 4 children, Charleston, Georgia, Evangeline, and Margot Vivian. Sarah Stellick is the current South Dakota Miss Clay County Fair. She is also a DSU student, majoring in Network and Security Administration. Her social impact initiative is titled Put the Her in Cybersecurity. Sarah is originally from Columbia, Illinois. September Kirby is the state director of the Miss South Dakota pageant. She is also an instructor in South Dakota State University's College of Nursing. And a particularly honored guest is Ray Peterson, Dakota State class of '68. Ray was an art major at Dakota State, and he spent 40 years as a speech instructor at SDSU, was also the designer, director, and administrator of South Dakota University's theater. He has also been producer of the Miss South Dakota pageant for over 50 years. In 2016, the Miss America organization presented Ray with the Miss America Crowning Achievement Award. Welcome, Ray. In case you don't know much about the Miss America competition, it began in 1921 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The competition has evolved over the last 99 years, and Miss America 2.0 is now a movement that empowers young women everywhere to dream big, insist that their voices are heard, and inspire change around the world. Dakota State entered into a partnership with the Miss America organization this fall with the Beacom College Writing Scholarship, part of the interview segment of competition for Miss America candidates. This scholarship is a first in the Miss America organization's history, part of the organization's efforts to focus on talent identification over appearance and encourage an emphasis on the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. The Beacom College of Computer and Cyber Sciences at Dakota State University pledged more than $100,000 in support of this effort, including a $5,000 Beacom College STEM Scholarship Cash Award and an in-kind scholarship. This year's winner was Miss Missouri, Simone Esters. The topic for the essay was Women and STEM. Speaking of STEM, the current Miss America performed the first science experiment as part of the Miss America Talent Competition. Please join me in welcoming Camille Schrier, Miss America 2020 to Dakota State University. Ms. Schrier.
I'm going to make sure my mic. I think this is on. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be here despite some of the viral things going around. Thank you for all of you who can be here in person, and hello to everyone who is watching on live stream. Thank you for watching. I'm glad that we could connect. You know, this is the beauty of technology in our world, is that even despite what's going on in the news today, that everyone is able to watch what's going on via the power of technology. And so I am Miss America 2020. I am so excited. I represented Virginia. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and now I'm here, and this is my first time in South Dakota. Also, thank you so much to Dakota State University for their generous sponsorship of the Miss America organization. They sponsored not only that STEM scholarship, but they sponsored our live stream this year for the preliminary competitions, and that allowed my family and friends from around the country to be able to watch me do my preliminary onstage question, my preliminary talent, and our social impact initiative as well. And that was wonderful. Again, power of technology. And that's really part of the reason that I love science, is because I say it in my demonstration that I did on stage, but science really is all around us. And that's really true in so many ways, from every single thing that we touch. And so when I travel around the country and I am meeting with young people, you know, middle-aged adults, and then also older adults, just being able to communicate how science touches every single thing that we do is so important to me. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about why I love science so much. I grew up, that's one of the most frequently asked questions I get is, was there a moment for you that you decided that you loved science? And, you know, I don't have that moment that I remember of like, this is the time that I started to love science. And I wish I had that, because that would be a lot more exciting. But I don't have that moment because it was something that was inherent for me. When I was a little girl, I did not want to be in a dress. I did not want to be in a skirt. I didn't care about bows and makeup. The only time I would wear a dress is when I would go to the dentist, because the dentist was my favorite place to go, and my dentist was my favorite person. And that was about the only time my parents got me in a dress. And that was okay. And they encouraged all of the things that I did love, which were being outside, playing in the dirt, picking up rocks and trying to find salamanders underneath the rocks. I picked up a snake when I was a little girl, probably your age. I named the snake Princess, and Princess bit me. And I got bit by a snake and threw it into my yard, but then I was kind of sad because I lost the snake. So I went and tried to find Princess. Did not find her again. But that was normal for me, and I was never afraid to get dirty. I grew up riding horses. I loved cooking and baking with my mom. Do you guys like cooking and baking? Do you ever bake with your mom? That was one of my favorite things to do. And have you guys ever made cookies? Yeah, so the cool thing about making cookies is if you put cookie dough in the oven, can you turn the cookies back into cookie dough? No, you can't, because a chemical reaction has taken place. And so cooking and baking is so much related to chemistry and biology. Because if we put those cookies and we got them all wet again, it would just be liquid cookies. It wouldn't be cookie dough, which is kind of cool. And so those were the kind of things that I learned when I was younger. I also liked working with yeast. I particularly liked making yeasted doughs and meringues as a young girl, which is a little atypical, and I just really enjoyed it. So I would watch the Food Network, and so I thought of so many different careers that I wanted to do in the sciences, and that's the beautiful part about STEM, is that STEM is not a career itself. There are so many different career opportunities and industries that really integrate within STEM. And so when I was your age, I said I wanted to be a naturologist. That is not a job. That was me trying to describe that I loved science and I loved biology. And so I thought I wanted to do that. And then when I liked the cooking and baking, I decided I wanted to be a chef. And I think that being a chef, or being someone who is kind of artistic in food, it's a beautiful meld of science and art combined. And I'm also a huge foodie to this day, and I love that because it really is science and art. But then my mom told me about this career called food science. She's like, I think you might want to be a food scientist because you love food and you love science, and you can use scientific principles to help make new foods, figure out formulations for foods. Let's do that. Or maybe that would be something I would want to do. But then I didn't want to do that because I went to SeaWorld. Have you guys ever been to SeaWorld? Have you guys been to SeaWorld? Maybe. Yeah, anyone who's been to SeaWorld in this room? I really liked the dolphins, and so I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I got to do a whole backstage tour, and I was like, I love what these marine biologists do. I want to do that. But then I really realized that I liked watching the news in the morning. I was one of those people in middle school and high school where I watched the news every day, and that was my favorite thing to watch. And I really liked the meteorologists on TV. And I was like, how cool is that? Because they're looking at the science of weather, and I loved weather, and I thought maybe I could be a meteorology broadcaster. But then I didn't want to wear makeup every day for work, which is funny now. But I thought maybe that I wanted to do a career in meteorology. And then I kind of explored that, but then I decided to go to college for something called chemical engineering. And I did not end up majoring in that. I started my college education at a school in the Midwest, and I started out in this chemical engineering program. But the problem is that as a woman in science, I felt like everyone around me wanted me to be an engineer, because there aren't enough women in engineering. We know that. Engineering provides a great career. I was told I was going to get a job, I was going to make a lot of money, but I never really thought about whether or not engineering was the right career for me. And I tell this story because it's so important for people to explore. I talked about all the different careers that I wanted to do, and all of them were STEM related. But that doesn't mean that there was that there was a right or wrong answer for me to pursue in science, technology, engineering, and math. And that is the beautiful part of this. And now, I started in engineering. It wasn't something that I loved, and that was okay. And I actually kind of felt like a failure when I decided I didn't like engineering. It didn't fit with the way that my brain worked. It didn't fit with my talents and my passions. And there were other students in my class that was exactly what they were meant to do. And that's okay that it wasn't what I was meant to do. And so I ended up transferring universities, which was also a challenge in my life. And I found my way to Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. And I started out because, from science perspective, you only change one variable at a time, right? That's how we figure out if things work. And so I changed my university, and I stayed in engineering. And I pursued engineering at a different university. And I was like, awesome, love this university, still don't love the engineering part. And I found this beautiful program called Systems Biology, which is basically bioinformatics. It combines computer science and data technology with biological systems and really biological problems. And so I was using the computer science techniques that I had learned as an engineer and the coding aspect and really all of those technology pieces, but applying them to biology. And I loved that, and it was perfect. And it also helped me use some of those credits that I had from engineering to apply them to a new degree. But then they told me, this is a brand new program, which I am actually the first graduate from Virginia Tech with a degree in systems biology. And they told me, they're like, you're supposed to graduate in 2017, but you're not going to be able to graduate with this degree because it's so new until 2018. And so because I'm a little crazy, I decided to pack on another degree on that so I could get the most out of my years there. And so I added biochemistry. And I loved what I was doing, finally. And so it's so important for young people, and I really tried to relay this message, to be okay finding their way through the world of STEM, exploring. Yesterday we were at an event, and Amber, Miss South Dakota, was talking a lot about her career planning that she works on it with her social impact initiative, and the importance of finding mentors in careers that you're interested in, shadowing someone who you might want to see if you are going to maybe want to take a job in that. And so I think that it's funny how all of our impact initiatives really relate. But so now I am a Doctor of Pharmacy student at Virginia Commonwealth University, and now I'm Miss America. So how in the heck did science help me win Miss America? It seems like an unlikely kind of combination, science helping me win Miss America. But I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of how in the heck all of this happened. And so last year, in April of 2019, so mind you, 11 months ago, I was sitting in class as a Doctor of Pharmacy student at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, and I was super stressed out. I had 10 classes I was taking, 10, literally 10, and you know how sometimes when you're stressed, you want to find another outlet to use your energy and something else to kind of distract you from what you're doing? And so I'm scrolling through Facebook at lunch, and there's an advertisement for this local competition for Miss Virginia. And I had always kind of had this idea in my mind of wow, I would love to do Miss America, but I can't be Miss America. I just can't, because I didn't want to get in a swimsuit on stage, and I didn't have a talent. And so I was like, how can I be Miss America? I can't be. Well, they got rid of the swimsuit portion in 2018, and I kind of decided, I was like, there's that talent portion, that's what I have to overcome. And so my mom and I had this discussion of, Camille, you're really talented, she said, and she's like, you have so many talents, you just don't have that performing talent that other girls have. You can't sing, you can't dance. No one wants to see me do either of those things. I can't play an instrument, I can't twirl a baton, and I don't do the whole ventriloquism thing that some women do, and that was okay. And that doesn't mean that I'm not a talented person. She joked, she's like, you should do calculus on stage. I was like, well, this has to be entertaining. Calculus is not something that might entertain you. It depends. Part of the talent competition, I think, in my mind, is being able to captivate an audience in 90 seconds. And that is how much time that we have. And so I always admired my chemistry professors, or maybe even my high school chemistry teachers, who did demonstrations. It was a big deal when we walked in the classroom and there was a demonstration set up in class. That was a good day. And so I was inspired, actually, I'm the second woman to use a science demonstration at Miss America. I was inspired by Miss Vermont 2015. Her name is Elena Westcom, who did this the first time at Miss America in 2015. And I loved the idea of combining science with performance. I love the way that I'm able to get people excited about science, but also educate at the same time and use this platform in a very new way. So I decided to compete in that local competition that I saw on the advertisement in Facebook. And it was only 2 weeks away, I should mention that. So we speed ordered some things off of Amazon. So I ordered glassware and chemicals. I ordered potassium iodide crystals, because you can't actually purchase supersaturated potassium iodide. I'll talk about that in a moment. And so I made all my solutions. I brought it to, in my little car down to Lynchburg, Virginia, to this competition. And the only people that knew that I was doing this was my mom and dad, because I knew I was going to lose, so I didn't tell anyone. Because how could I win a local competition for Miss America with a science demonstration? I'm not going to win. And I did win. And 8 weeks later, I went to Miss Virginia and was the only person who did a talent that was different. So there were 24 women, and everyone is standing there with either they're getting ready to play an instrument, they have their dance shoes on, they have their microphones to sing, and here comes Miss Dominion with her beakers and my lab coat. And I'm like, this is not going to happen. And it did. Honestly, it was important for me to do something that was true to who I am. So when we think about what a talent is, I think a talent is something that's a passion and a skill developed over your lifetime, and that was what science was for me. And I found a way to represent that in 90 seconds, because you only have 90 seconds to sell what this talent is. And it's really a performance, but it's also this educational and excitement around STEM, which is what I do in my everyday life. And so I went to Miss Virginia, and I won Miss Virginia on my first try. I won $20,000 of scholarship money to go to my graduate education, and I had the opportunity to then travel around the Commonwealth of Virginia doing science and also talking about my social impact initiative, which is drug safety and abuse prevention. So I traveled around for 6 months, and I was preparing to go to Miss America. And I'm like, okay, I got lucky winning Miss Virginia. So I went into Miss America wanting to have the best time, wanting to make the wonderful friends I knew I could make, like Miss South Dakota, and also wanting to make sure that I had the best experience and never felt like I was anything other than myself. And I went there and I performed my demonstration, and I won the preliminary talent award the night that I performed it, and I also won Miss America. And through this process, the one thing that I think is even more important than the science, because the science is important, but the bigger message is being yourself and being authentic. Because if I had done something, if I had just prepared a song that I didn't really actually know how to sing, and I just prepared that for that one competition, or if I had somehow learned how to dance, which wouldn't have happened, it would not have been representative of the person that I am. And when you have 90 seconds to sell yourself to a panel of judges that are going to select you for this job, you have an extra 90 seconds to tell them something about you. And whether or not you love art, whether or not you love ceramics. Miss Idaho actually did ceramics on stage with a pottery wheel, and Miss Kansas did a speed painting. And so if you think about all of the different talents that we have, Miss South Dakota is a talented pianist. She's played piano since she was 4 years old. And I was picking up bugs and snakes in my backyard since I was 4 years old and making meringue. And so it's really the beautiful part about this organization is that we're all able to represent the wonderful things that we can do. And so I'm excited to be able to kind of broaden what talent looks like at Miss America, because in the basis of this organization is scholarship. And so I'm using the things that I've learned through my educational process to then gain more scholarship money. And I won $50,000 then at Miss America to go toward my graduate education. So if you think about all of those things combined, it was a wonderful meld of being able to combine all of the passions and talents I had throughout my life and make them entertaining. So do you guys want to see what I did? Let's do it. So here's my question. It's like, I'm like back here, it's like an ice skating rink. So of course, I am not ready to do science. One of the biggest things that I talk about through this process is personal protective equipment, which is incredibly important. So I have my lab coat here that I'm going to stick on. People sometimes, I think that you just dress like a scientist and you wear a lab coat because that's how you dress to be a scientist. But in reality, there is so much that's important about, oh, I'm going to move my mic. Sorry, everyone. You're going to hear this go. It's so incredibly important to make sure that you're protected when you're using, especially chemicals like what I do in elephant's toothpaste. Let me put my gloves on. I will also tell you that when I was backstage during the live show at Miss America, I realized very quickly the importance of well, not that I didn't know it before, but I was reminded of the importance of personal protective equipment. What goes in these flasks is concentrated hydrogen peroxide, which is 35%. This is what hydrogen peroxide normally looks like in the pharmacy, and this is about 3%. That is 35%. It is almost 12 times stronger than what is in that bottle. And I splashed it on my face because we were doing a live show and I was frantic, and I was opening my bottle too quickly, and it splashed up on my face and it burnt my skin. And thank goodness that I had goggles on, because your skin can regenerate, but your eyes are something that you only have one of. Sorry, I'm struggling to get these gloves on, but they need to be tight on me. So that's one of the coolest things about science, is that we make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe, because science is fun, but science can be dangerous at the same time. So I'm going to make sure I have my hair up, I have my goggles on, I have my gloves on, I have closed-toed heels on, but they're still closed-toed. I have pants on, and I also have my lab coat on. I don't have to take my crown off, spoiler alert, because it is not dangerous to me doing my demonstration, and I worked really hard for this, so I'm keeping it on. So what I'm going to do is a demonstration called Elephant's Toothpaste, and it's one of my favorite ones to do because it is so incredibly visual. So when I was coming up with something that I wanted to perform at Miss America, I wanted to make sure that it was something that was visual enough to be entertaining to the very back of the room. Because part of what talent is the entertainment value of what I do. And if I was to do, for example, and you scientists in the room might get this, if I was to do gel electrophoresis on a table, which is incredibly scientific, no one would be able to see it. No one would understand what's happening, and it would not be entertaining. I might think it's entertaining. It would also take longer than 90 seconds. And so I was strategically choosing something that would be able to represent a basic scientific concept, but also be really cool. And it's very colorful. It's huge. And I made mine exceptionally huge when I did this at Miss America. And we'll see. Maybe we can try to replicate and get it to go that high today. It goes about 17 or 18 feet in the air, which is super fun. I'm going to actually we have lots of high ceilings in here, so I'm going to distribute all of this in. He's like, oh no.
I have lots more.
Oh no, this is totally fine. I have plenty.
We can go super nuts.
No, it's totally fine. So this is the hydrogen peroxide. Now I have a question for the group in the front, or actually anyone in the room. That hydrogen peroxide's in a brown bottle over there. That's how you get it in the pharmacy. Why do you think it's in this brown bottle? Do you have any guesses? Does anyone in the room have any guesses? Yeah. So it doesn't look appetizing enough to eat. That's a great idea. That is not exactly why it's in a brown bottle, but that is what you would call a great hypothesis of maybe why this is in a brown bottle. Anyone else have a guess? Light sensitive. It's like blackout curtains in your house. Protects the hydrogen peroxide from light. Because the interesting part about hydrogen peroxide is that it breaks down all the time. It's breaking down right there in these flasks. And it would break down with light just sitting on a shelf. And so when you're purchasing hydrogen peroxide, you want to make sure that it's working and the concentration that they say it is when you buy it. And so it protects it from light. But there's other things that we can use to break down hydrogen peroxide. And that's what we're going to do today. The other thing is, here's my other fun fact about science that I love to talk about. I like glassware. Do you guys know what this is called? Spoiler alert, it's not a beaker. It is glass. It's a certain type of flask rather than a beaker. It's called an Erlenmeyer flask. This is actually what a beaker is. And so it's funny, sometimes people are like, oh, what do you have in your beakers? I was like, technically it's an Erlenmeyer flask, and technically these are my beakers. And I think that that's one of the coolest things about science, is because you want to be able to communicate with other scientists about what you're doing. And so all the glassware that I use have special names on them that we reference them so we can make sure that we're copying procedures correctly. So I have my hydrogen peroxide in here. I told you that it breaks down. Hydrogen peroxide, does anyone know the chemical formula for water? What is it? H2O, absolutely. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. So it has an extra oxygen on there, but it's kind of similar to water. And so what we're going to do, and what it does when it breaks down, is it loses an oxygen, and it turns into water, and then oxygen gas. And sometimes when that happens, especially if we do it really quickly, the breaking and forming of bonds will cause energy to be released, which comes in the form of heat. And so we're going to see a lot of heat when we do this. But we said that oxygen comes off. And so what do you think would happen if we kind of like put gas into a liquid? What do you think would happen? Will we get maybe bubbles? Does that sound about right? So what if we trapped all of that with dish soap? Don't you think that would be fun? So that's part of what we do this when we talk about this demonstration, is why we're putting every single thing in. So I'm going to use dish soap basically to trap all of that gas. So I'm going to put this in here. Okay, and I told you the hydrogen peroxide is breaking down constantly. There's your bubbles. Isn't that exciting? No, it's not. The other thing that I like to do is we're going to use some food coloring. Does anyone know what this has a very particular scientific purpose. Does anyone know what the scientific purpose for food coloring is in the demonstration? Yeah? Color, exactly. It makes it fun. So the thing is, I think science is really fun, and using something like food coloring really makes it exciting, and that's part of why I use the food coloring in it. And so we have 3 different colors here. I have another fun fact that I'll tell you, is that when I was designing, talk about experimentation, I had to do this so many different times before I went to Miss America and Miss Virginia to make sure that I could replicate it, but also that the colors were going to be what I wanted them to be on stage. And so my competition was about the week before 4th of July, and so I'm like, I'm going to do red, white, and blue. Experimentation is important because without the dye, and I'll talk about this when I talk about my catalyst that I use, without the dye, it's actually kind of like a reddish-brown color. And so I thought that with the absence of food coloring that it would be white foam. It is not. It is like red-brown. And so I'll show you when we actually do the demonstration how it looks kind of reddish-brown. Put the green in. Okay. And I talked about a catalyst briefly, just mentioning my colors. And so again, this is breaking down all the time. Isn't that exciting? Still not exciting. / I only have 90 seconds to show you this during Miss America. So I'm impatient, and so I have to use something to speed it up. And so I use something called a catalyst. And a catalyst is basically something that I describe like a motor on your bike. If you're trying to ride your bike up a mountain, and it would be really hard. It would take you really long. And so if I put a motor on your bike, you're going to get up there faster, it's going to happen easier, and that's a lot more exciting than just biking up a hill. So this is super saturated potassium iodide. They helped me prepare this today, but when I used this at Miss America, I ordered potassium iodide crystals on Amazon and super saturated it in my kitchen and brought it to Miss America. So I had some pre-planning to do before I went to Miss America. I'm going to pour this really quickly and try not to pour it everywhere. Potassium iodide is something that is really, it's just one atom of iodine and one of potassium stuck together. And it is going to do exactly what time and light do for, I'm going to put a lecture in here, what time and light do for the hydrogen peroxide. It breaks off that oxygen, but it happens so much faster. Okay. This is also what controls the speed and the height of the reaction. Okay. I'm going to get that nice and high. Okay. So it was actually pretty funny when I was preparing the demonstration for Miss Virginia. I was constantly ordering chemicals to my house. And I have an apartment that has an outside door, and so I would constantly have boxes that had those hazmat symbols on them. My neighbors were very concerned, and so was my roommate at the time, I think, of what I was doing. And I had to, give some background information so that no one was too scared. I'm going to move these based upon the proximity to these flasks. These might get dirty. I might want to take them off the table. Oh yeah, I'm going to have you help me there. Okay, so this is when the exciting part happens. I'm going to move these over. Thank you, guys. So here's a reminder. What's in these flasks is concentrated hydrogen peroxide, 35%, food coloring, and dish soap. The hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. We're going to break off the oxygen. That oxygen is going to get trapped in the dish soap. It's going to form foam. But the breaking and the forming of bonds are going to create heat. And that's something called an exothermic reaction. That means that heat's released. An endothermic reaction would be quite the opposite. It would get really cold. And you're going to see the heat in this. You're going to see steam come off of it when I pour this in. It's going to shoot up in the air, and part of that is actually because of the flask that I chose, because if you think of like the pressure building up, it would be like kind of like kinking a hose and making it shoot a little higher because the pressure is able to build up, so it helps it shoot out. And then I'm putting in my catalyst, which is going to actually work to break off that oxygen and speed up the reaction. Are you guys ready? Can we do a countdown? Do you want to count down from 10? Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna get it on myself. Oh my gosh. And this is why we use tarps, and this is why I wear a lab coat. But I want you guys to look at all the heat that's coming off of this. This is heat. We actually did this at a demonstration in Virginia, and they had a heat gun. And so they were able to tell me that it was around 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit when this happened. And so if you think about how it was room temperature just a few seconds ago, and then it went to be that hot, that is the energy within all of the bonds. And so when those hydrogen peroxide molecules that I put in there break off, the more of those that are in there, the more heat gets produced. And so look at how crazy that is. And it's called elephant's toothpaste, not because you can brush your elephant's teeth with it, but if you look at, especially this blue one, it's kind of like oozing out, and it looks like a giant tube of toothpaste that you're squeezing. And so that's part of why it's called elephant's toothpaste. But so I did this at Miss Virginia, at Miss America, and at my local. And I do this all around the country now to help young people get excited about STEM. Because if they can think about, if they go to or even adults, quite honestly, if you're then going to the pharmacy and you see that brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide and you think about catalytic decomposition, you're thinking about, hey, this is breaking down and I know why this is in a brown bottle. It kind of makes science more relatable to people. It makes it exciting because science careers are difficult. I'm never going to say that it was easy to get a biochemistry degree and a systems biology degree, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth it. And when you can think about the ways that science can be exciting in your life and applicable to your life, it can make it a lot more encouraging when you face that adversity or you're in that test and you're like, this is so hard. You can think about why it's worth it and why it's important to learn about. And all of the crazy ways that science touches your life every single day. And more than anything, I am able to share my message of authenticity because this is what I love. I love this. I'm a huge science nerd. And so for me to be able to represent this at Miss America is something that's so incredibly important. And being able to share that, hey, I'm okay with being different. I took a risk, and I knew that it was a risk, but in reality, the risk is what helped me be different and helped me win this job. And it also helped me to win $73,000 to go to my graduate education. So that is what I have for you today. I'm going to allow a little time. I know we have some questions, but thanks for letting me share this with you. Did you guys like this? Thanks. Now I'll take my goggles off.
That was fun.
Thanks.
Science is fun. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Of course. And yes, we do have some questions. So as you know, Madison Middle School was not able to join us in person today, but they had submitted some questions for you. And so I have with me Rose O'Brien. She works with us in the admission office here at Dakota State University. She's going to pose some questions to you from those students. So
awesome.
Thank you.
All right, from Lexi Hirsch, who's an 8th grader at Madison Middle School. You kind of answered this already, but why did you choose to go into pageantry?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I started competing in organizations, not Miss America specifically, but other organizations as a teenager. And I never thought I could do Miss America because of the talent. So that was really why I didn't. But one of the things I was looking for was, I was kind of shy. I never really had performance experience because I played sports. I was in school, and so it helped me learn how to have public speaking skills, but it also helped me learn how to interview as a young person. And so when I then went to college or was in high school trying to get a job, even a part-time job or an internship, I was leaps and bounds ahead of my peers. And so that was part of the reason why I did that, and it gave me experience, and it was fun family time for me and my parents.
So from Lindsay Litz, who's a 7th grader at Madison Middle School, how did you go into pageantry and still do STEM? How do you manage your time?
It's difficult as a title holder occasionally. So as Miss Virginia, I had a full-time position. And so I actually took a year off of my education to be Miss Virginia. And then as Miss America, I take a second year off of my education. But it's worth it to me because I'm able to pay for a lot of it. But I think being a title holder and also being someone in STEM, STEM's a demanding thing to study or in a demanding career, teaches you a lot of time management skills. And so optimizing your energy and where your time goes is so important. And it helps you focus on things that are your passions and what are important to you and prioritize the things that are important to you in your life.
So from Maggie Engbretson, who's an 8th grader at Madison Middle School, what's your favorite part of being Miss America, and what are some of the best experiences you've had as in your year?
Now, I say this because not because I just did this, but quite literally, going to schools and doing my demonstrations are probably the coolest thing that I get to do. And so when I first decided to do these demonstrations at my local competition, my dream was to be able to travel around and bring this into schools around my local community in Richmond, Virginia. And so then I had the opportunity to not only do that in Richmond, Virginia, but then do that all around Virginia. And now I have the chance to go around the country and do this. And so now I've started to collaborate with people that do this quite literally full time and travel around the country as science entertainers. And it's given me this kind of unique opportunity to bring science around. And so the science demonstrations are probably my favorite part, but I think some of the most meaningful work I do in addition to this is what I do with medication safety and abuse prevention and hearing the stories of people who are touched by drug addiction. So a little bit twofold there.
So from Molly Murray, who's an 8th grader at Madison Middle School, what's the hardest part about being in pageants and running for Miss America?
I think the hardest part is, the hardest but most rewarding part is getting ready for the interview competition. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I've gained from this. And so the interview at Miss America is, sometimes it can get political. Sometimes they're gonna ask you ethical-based questions about how you feel about certain things, but it allows you to form your own opinions on things that are happening in the world, be educated about what's happening in the world around you, and start to form opinions as a young person, especially as we're going into an election year. It's so incredibly important to think about the issues that are happening in our world today and then be educated about them and then form your opinion on them. And I think some people in my age group kind of don't feel like they need to form those opinions yet. They're like, this doesn't affect me. I don't really need to think about this or be educated on this issue. And so understanding yourself, understanding what you believe, and then preparing for that interview situation, and also knowing how to answer a question that you have no idea what they're talking about is quite literally a talent that if you ended up in a job interview and you need to come up with a really intelligent answer, that you've had experience with that. And so it's the most rewarding but the most difficult part to prepare for. It takes a lot of work.
From Dylan Riedel, who is an 8th grader at Madison Middle School, why did you choose your platform?
Absolutely. So my mom is a nurse, and growing up, I always got sick, like normal kiddos sick, not like seriously sick. But I would always go to the drugstore with my mom, and she would know what kind of cough and cold medicine to give me, and she would always be very mindful of what was in each of them. And when I went to pharmacy school, I very quickly realized how rare that was, that my mom was taking that much care of how much medicine I was getting, what I was getting. And so that kind of inspired me on the medication safety piece of my platform. But also, I took a naloxone training class in college or in pharmacy school, and I learned about how huge the opioid epidemic is in this country. And I'm lucky that I don't have a personal connection to it, but learning from that perspective of how much this is impacting our communities, especially in Virginia where I was in pharmacy school, it really made me want to use this as my platform.
From Ileana Collins, who is a 7th grader at Madison Middle School, who influenced your passion towards science?
I think my mom and dad were the most impactful for me. And funny enough, my mom is a nurse, she's an RN, and my dad is a diesel mechanic by trade, but neither of them have a formal college education. And they were able to use the inherent kind of science love that they had. My dad has this engineering mind that he was able to use as a diesel mechanic, but didn't necessarily have the opportunity or resources to pursue higher education. And my mom has an RN, so she did go to college for 2 years. Their inherent love of science and talent that they had, they were able to share that with me as a child. And it really inspired all these different pieces of science. And so I didn't grow up with parents that were those traditional science people, but they loved it in their own way. And so they were my inspiration for sure.
From Delaney Gary, who's an 8th grader at Madison Middle School, what do you want to do with your future? So after Miss America.
Well, after Miss America, I have 3 more years of school left to get my Doctor of Pharmacy, and so I'll return to Virginia Commonwealth and get my Doctor of Pharmacy. What I'm hoping to do long term is work for a pharmaceutical company, and so I had worked for a pharmaceutical company for 2 years and saw how people with a science degree were able to apply that in a business sense, because it's really important to understand the science of the products that you're creating and selling to be able to make financial decisions for the company. So I'm hoping to go into business development in a pharmaceutical company and use all the science knowledge I have and apply it there.
So from Daniel Hauser, who's a 6th grader at Madison Middle School, if you could choose any STEM-related job, what would you choose? And you kind of answered that already.
Oh, that's hard. I mean, I think my dream is to work in the pharmaceutical industry, but if I could quite literally choose any job, I think I would either be probably a veterinarian or a zookeeper, because I'm a huge animal person. And I think that would kind of be like my dream job, but I love what I do now too. But I'm always interested to find all the animals, which is part of what made me love science in the first place.
From Nathan Hasselton, who's a 7th grader at Madison Middle School. This is a very deep question.
Okay.
What do you think could be done to better improve the U.S. educational system?
Hi, welcome to the presidential debates of 2020. I think that there's almost sometimes too much of a push toward four-year universities immediately out of college. And so I had wished, and Amber and I talked about this yesterday, I wish that I had, first of all, had an opportunity to really explore more and know what I was going to do with my education while I was in high school, and not just kind of be told what to do or like expected to go directly into a four-year university. I think I would have benefited from doing community college for 2 years and having an opportunity to really explore, and also it would have been an opportunity for me to save a little bit of money and then transition into a four-year university, because there's some students that are perfectly ready to go on to that four-year program, but I don't think that all students are. And I think that I probably would have been one of those students.
Mm-hmm. From Shayna Flyinghorse, who is a 7th grader at Madison Middle School. Do you have any advice for someone who's interested in going to college, like DSU?
Mm-hmm. I've said it again, definitely explore different majors before you go there, and be okay with changing your mind. That was something that I struggled with, is that when I got into a situation where I felt like I was locked in, I felt like I couldn't change my major because that was what I chose that college based upon. And it was completely okay for me to change that. And so that would be my advice.
From Parker Johnson, who's an 8th grader at Madison Middle School. What was your motivation, and what steps did you take to enter the science field?
Oh gosh, I took all of the science classes I could in high school. And I didn't take all AP classes, but I did take every single extra science class that I could. And the other thing that I like to share with students is that I was not like a straight A student in high school. And I think there's this perception that you have to be like a straight A 4.0 student to be a person in science and to be successful in science. And I was not that person. I definitely had adversity in high school. I did not do super great on every single exam or every class that I was in, but I did always take those classes, despite the fact that I might not get an A in them because they were more difficult for me. And it was the passion that I had for the sciences that made me want to continue to pursue that. And also, like, when I got into college, I definitely did not get an A in every science class. I didn't graduate with a 4.0. And that's okay, and that doesn't make you a non-successful person in science, because it's a difficult field.
From Kate Johnson, who is a 7th grader at Madison Middle School. What kind of advice would you give to students like us who are interested in things that STEM can do for us?
I think that being able to understand all of the places that science can be applied in our everyday life is probably just understanding that and valuing that. Now, when I go around my life every single day, I think about all the different ways that science touches us. So whether or not it's, you know, an agricultural piece of science that creates the cotton, that creates the dress that you wear, like, where did science fall into that equation? How did science make my lab coat? How did science make the plastics that we use every single day? How did science create the tablet or the phone that I use during the day? I think understanding and appreciating the impact that STEM has in every single piece of our life just makes you appreciate it so much more, and it's something that I think about on a daily basis.
Awesome. How are we doing on time?
You can ask a couple more if you're willing.
Awesome, absolutely.
We'll be done.
Awesome. There's a couple additional questions here. So in what ways does your family help support you in your endeavors?
Well, so as Miss Virginia, my parents helped me a lot, especially because I was traveling around that state by car. And so now I am flying around the country doing science, talking about mind your meds. And so I've actually kind of, you know, it's funny when you're an adult and you get a new job and then you have to move back in with your parents. And so that's kind of the situation that I'm in. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and so now I've relocated back with my mom and dad. And you know, when you're coming home for 9 hours, sometimes between trips, like, it's like going on a week's vacation, having all your things, and then going back out for another 2 weeks, and you've got like 9 hours in between them. My parents have helped me very much, and they're supportive both emotionally and physically when I come home, because this can be a tough job. This is definitely a full-time position. I'm traveling around the country nonstop, and so they're my sounding board and support system in so many ways.
what's it like to be on TV so much?
It was very odd at first, but now it's been so normal for me. I've actually had the opportunity to be on a talk show even. I was on the Kelly Clarkson show back in September as a state title holder as Miss Virginia. And now I'm on TV very frequently doing, morning news programs, doing some demonstrations. It's a little odd at first, but then I start to get very used to it. It's a fun opportunity. I always value those opportunities because of wherever I am, if I'm in a new city, just being able to kind of get my message out there and remind everyone why Miss America is important is a really cool thing.
And what is your favorite part about traveling around the country?
Ooh, I love being able to visit new places, and so this is my first time to South Dakota. And when I was a teenager, I had made a map in my bedroom, and it was like a linen piece of cloth, and I had puffy painted the United States on it. And I said that I wanted to visit every state in the United States. And when I did, I would paint in the state, and my memento, because I like to collect things from places I go, I always get a lapel pin, and then I push it it's on a bulletin board. And so that's the thing that I always get from the states that I go to. And so this is my first trip to South Dakota. So when I go home, I'm going to paint in South Dakota and stick a lapel pin in it. And I'm hoping that I can make it to every state in the United States. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to potentially this year completing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come visit us and
Thank
answer
you.
some questions.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camille. It's an honor to have you here at Dakota State, and you are definitely welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
We would like to thank the faculty and staff on campus who helped organize the event. A number of you are here in the audience. We couldn't have done that without all of you, so thank you to those of you who helped. We have a couple science faculty members here who got all the gear. They were prepared for some of their own experiments too, and since the middle schoolers weren't able to join us, we're going to do that again at some other time. So we're all geared up and ready to go. So hopefully you can join us sometime for some of those experiments, please. And also thanking those at the school, Madison School, Central School administration and teaching staff for working with us and helping to make this day a success. Thanks also to Dr. Ben Jones. He is the South Dakota Secretary of Education for his efforts in sharing the news with schools across the state, and DSU alumnus Science Steve for sharing the information in his newsletter. That is all that we have for today. Before we wrap up, I want to recognize also we have a DSU alum with us today, Shantel Krebs. She is currently the chairman of the board of the Miss America organization. She's an alum from DSU. She's traveling around with Camille and other folks from the Miss America organization all the time. So we're happy to have her back on campus, and while she's kind of towards the back of the room so you won't see her, I'm very glad to have her here today. So thanks for joining us, Shantel. Where's Mike? Mike's hiding out in the back as well, but Mike Samp is here also with the Miss America organization. He's from around this part of the country, so we're very glad to have Mike with us too. Thank you so much, and for helping us get organized, connecting Dakota State with the organization. We're really thrilled to have that connection with everyone. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate all the adjustments everyone had to do for what's going on in the world today, but we did it, and I appreciate everything. Thank you for coming, and travel safely.